Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review. I'm here today to talk about Black History Month. The month that is a celebration of my people, because I am a black man and everything. And it's about all our accomplishments, all the oppression that we have gone through over like centuries of living in like America and stuff like that. So I'm here today to talk to you about prolific black figures in the horror genre. So when it comes to that, the horror genre, if it's say like, an Asian or Indian country, you're gonna see Asian and Indian people prominently in those movies. That makes sense. In the North American continent and European countries, America, Canada, France, Britain, Australia, places like that, and like Ireland and stuff, while it should be everybody, because many races make up those countries, they're mainly just white. And it's very rare to see a black star in like, a horror or like a slasher movie or even created and stuff. Because for the most part over here, they're just made by white people. And there are so many famous horror movies, slasher movies, killers, protagonists, survivors, and stuff. You can name a bunch. Everything from Mike Myers to Ghostface to Sidney Prescott, Laurie Strode, and the list just goes on and on and on. But naming black figures in like horror slasher movies does get a bit harder only because they're not really cast in those roles. And most of the time, if you do see a black star in a horror movie, some of them don't like survive that long, and plenty of them die very quickly. This is because Hollywood is mostly run by white people, and they assume that white people don't want to see black people on screen. You've seen it many times before in comedies, action movies, dramas, you name it. And horror is no exception and stuff. But there are some black stars that should be recognized for like their contribution to that of horror and slasher. There are some that are so famous, even I myself never heard of them or even saw the movie in which they're attached to. And other little details are like so interesting, like the first black person to survive a slasher movie, or the first black antagonist to play a monster in a horror movie, or like the first black person to lead as a hero in like a horror movie and stuff. And much of this information, like I said before, just simply isn't known because most people don't know about it because they don't teach you that kind of stuff. And with them rolling back on DEI, I doubt they're going to start trying to teach that now and everything because they don't want you to know. And so, it's best to explain it now before YouTube decide to roll back on DEI or like streaming services start taking away the movies, similar to how the Air Force just took away the Tuskegee Airmen video and stuff. They love to hate. And so, like, some of these people I've researched, I'm shocked and surprised that like it was like portrayed by like a black person. And some of the like things that were created, I never like there's this one franchise I'm very familiar with. I had no idea it was created by a black man. Literally just never even thought about it because nobody never really talks about the creators of this franchise or the directors and stuff. And normally, if you do see, say, like, a black person in like horror, mostly it's like a predominantly black like movie or television show or the network or the TV station on which it comes on. There are plenty of them if you like really take the time and scroll. But like I said before, if it's not like a black television channel or a black network, or you can't find it in a certain category on like a streaming app that says black horror or black comedies or black action movies. All we have to have a little category of our own, then most likely you're not gonna find it. And if you do find it, most likely it's gonna be a low budget movie. Direct to streaming, direct to video, or some type of indie type movie. A lot of them normally don't have big budgets and stuff because they're black. And they don't want to take the time and effort to put the money into some of these projects, some and everything. Now, some of these movies I'm about to name on the list were very controversial back in the day because the white audience did not want to see that. One I'm gonna mention, it has some black people in it, and the other black people do blackface and stuff because Hollywood is racist. In 1934, of all times, one of the first black horror movies was a low-budget black movie called Chloe, Love is Calling You. And it stars that of Georgette Harvey as Mandy, a voodoo woman who wants to get revenge on white men for lynching her husband. Now, this is back when voodoo was considered a very bad thing. However, I discovered that voodoo is actually a black religion in Africa and stuff. But of course, and modern times and in Hollywood and stuff, they portrayed it as being something evil. And the 1930s and stuff, it was really racist back then. So for a movie like this to come out about a black woman getting revenge on a bunch of white people, a bunch of folks must have got pissed. Now, the Chloe movie, the problem with this is that they have racial stereotypes towards black people, especially white people playing black people doing blackface. In 1940, a man by the name of Spencer Willams Jr., he wrote a horror movie based on his short, and it got produced into a movie that had a predominantly black cast. This is a movie I've never heard of before until I researched it. It's called Son of Inagi. And many people used to get this confused thinking it was the Inagi movie because thinking it was a sequel, but it is not. This movie was highly controversial back in the day because of the simple fact they weren't used to having black people being portrayed not only in a movie, but black people being in their own horror movie and being a hero and stuff like that. Over in France, there was a movie, which I'm gonna have to change the title because you can't say the R word on YouTube, the sexual assault of a vampire. This one actress by the name of Jacqueline Signer in 1968 played a vampire. She is considered to be the very first black woman to play that of a vampire. Now, here is the thing. I do not know if this woman is actually black or not. It says it on Google, but Google tends to lie because, especially the AI part of it, because I typed in first black man to survive a slasher movie, and it came up with LL Cool J when he was in Halloween H2O. That is not true. Reggie is technically the first from Friday the 13th. And so these are the only pictures I could find of this woman in black and white. And because of her light-skinned nature, I'm not saying light-skinned people aren't black. I ain't saying that at all. What I'm saying is this was back in the old days when a lot of people used to do blackface and stuff like that. So I'm not 100% sure if she really is or not. I hope to God she is. Because these are the only photos you can find of her, and she's only starred in 3 projects back in the day. So I'm just gonna say what Google says and says that she's black. Another movie that was controversial because they did not want to see a black lead take front and center in a zombie movie came from in George A. Romano's Night of the Dead. You have the late Duncan Jones, may he rest in peace, who played Ben. Ben is normally considered like the first, major black character and that of a horror movie, or at least a horror movie franchise. And I've never seen this movie because it's like way before my time. And so like in every other like Night of the Dead like remake they've ever made, Ben has always been portrayed black. And ironically, he's been portrayed by Tony Todd. I will get into Tony Todd a little bit later. However, in one of the remakes in 2006, he was portrayed by a white guy. Yeah. All the other remakes, and there's been plenty of remakes, this is the only one that I could find where the Ben character is portrayed by a white guy, and it's in Night of the Living Dead 3D in 2006. This is what I would like to call reverse wokenism in Hollywood. There was no need to race bend this character white, especially when the other characters are white. And the one dude in like the poster, as you can see, is Armenian. In 1972, William Marshall, he played the very first black vampire in a movie called Blackula. And so he played Prince Marmalade or something like that. And so he is considered, to be the very first male to play a vampire, as opposed to Jacqueline, who was in 1968. But he's the first black American. Sorry, Wesley Snipes. However, Wesley Snipes is, one of the most famous black vampires of all time. Even though his movie is technically a comic book movie, it's more considered a comic book horror movie. Tony Todd will always go down in history as being one of the most famous black antagonists in a horror franchise, and that is the Candyman franchise. I've never seen them, but I plan on watching one tonight. These movies, I believe, came out like in the 90s, and all I ever knew about it was that he had bees on his face and he has like a hook for a hand. And I've always heard the whole, a person with a hook for a hand, and I've always wondered where that phrase came from in horror movies and stuff, and now I know. And I've heard, Candyman reference once in the Scream 2, when Randy was talking about Candyman's daughter and stuff like that. But I had no idea what the world he was talking about. I just assumed because it's horror that Candyman was probably white. But little did I know that he is black. And, I can't wait to watch this movie. And they did reboot it at one point where he got the guest star. And he's guest starred in so many horror stuff. From like Night of the Dead, Scream, Final Destinations. Like, he has been solidified in horror. And I had no idea because the first thing I ever saw this man in was Xena in Star Trek The Next Generation. And so sad. May he rest in peace. The last movie he filmed was Final Destination 6 that comes out in May, and yes, it's a horror movie. Sheva Ross, when he was a little kid, he was in Friday the 13th, A New Beginning, and he played Reggie Winters. Reggie is considered to be the very first black person to survive that of a slasher movie. Not LL Cool J's character, even though technically he did survive, because it's very rare for a black person to survive a slasher movie. And, he was the first. And like I said before, came LL Cool J. And then came Joel from Scream 2. Joel never really gets mentioned that much. In 2002, Aaliyah, may she rest in peace, was considered to be the very first black American woman to play a vampire in Queen of the Damned, playing Oscar. I've never seen this movie, but sadly she died, but she had finished filming her scenes. But I heard a rumor that she never completed all of them and a stand-in had to come in, but I don't know. And like, she was known as like the princess of R&B music. Let me clarify something with Aaliyah. She's not technically the first black female to be a vampire. Technically, she's the first to own her own movie because, there's been other like black female vampires, but they just had like smaller roles, like that one actress in the Blade movie. It would take many years, decades, for there to be another like black main protagonist take on zombies in the form of Morgan from the Walking Dead franchise. Morgan was the very first black character introduced into the comics and that of the television show The Walking Dead. And he later transitioned over to Fear the Walking Dead, where his character took over in the fourth season towards the end of the series, for like a whole fourth season like run that he was there. His character was awesome. He was headstrong, he was determined, but he also had flaws, and he also suffered from mental illness of losing his wife and son. At one point in time, they just didn't know what to do with the character. Sometimes he's good, sometimes he's like trying to kill everybody, other times he has like a mental breakdown, other times he's back to thinking nobody can kill him, and because he just doesn't care if he lives or dies. But he's always one of those people who tries to save people from the zombie apocalypse. And he survived. R.L. Stine is considered one of the greatest horror writers of all time. And he has written many children horror books. And of course, Goosebumps was adapted into a television show. Now, in his Goosebumps books, the characters are predominantly white. And in the show, they're predominantly white as well. One of the reasons for it, because even though it's an American show, it is filmed in Canada. And if you've ever seen a Canadian television show, all they have is white people. And in the Goosebumps show, in the 28th episode of the series, around the second season, or maybe third, I can't remember which one, they had an episode called Attack of the Jack-o'-lanterns. And Erica Luthrell was the first biracial black person to play a main character in an episode where she wasn't the best friend and had a tiny role. See, every other time, if you ever seen my Goosebumps review, you know that every time you'll see a black person on screen, they always play the best friend, and they're only on there for like less than a minute. I'm not even joking. And Erica actually was one of those guest starring appearances in the first season. Piano Lessons Can Be Murder, where she's in it for less than a minute. But thankfully, she was able to get this leading role. In other R.L. Stine properties, R.L. Stine other famous show, The Haunting Hour, all the way in about, the third or fourth season, that's how long it took, for the 73rd episode called Arc V, China Ann McClain was the first black person to play a main character in the show. The only other time you'll see another black character is all the way in the first season called Black Mask. And that actress, who's half black, she had a co-starring role. So she was just co-starring, but China actually got to play the main protagonist and stuff, and the episode revolved around her. It took 73 episodes for that to happen. And every other episode after that just has an all-white cast. There's only like 2 Latinos, maybe 1 or 2 Asians, and that's about it. Canada. Scream Season 3 was the most ambitious Scream project ever because the television series was on hiatus for the longest time. They recast, or they didn't recast, they rebooted the television series in season 3 with an all new cast. And what's so significant about this is that this cast is predominantly black. There are at least 5 black teen characters, and then of course you have the adult characters. This is a first for Scream history because, you know, the first movie didn't have no black people. They started introducing black characters in the second movie. The television series in the first season had like no black people, and then in the second season there was a black girl, but she was only there for like a love interest and only there to die. But this is the first time that they've ever been front and center, and the first time you've ever had a final boy as opposed to a final girl, and the final boy is black. The main prominent characters are black. And not only that, this is the first and only time Ghostface has been portrayed by a black person. Tyga, he played Jamie, I think his name was, and he is still to this day the only black person to play Ghostface. Now, when it comes to R.L. Stine movies, Kiana Madarella, I'm not really sure how you say her name. She was in the first and third Fear Street, which was a trilogy of the original Fear Street movies, where she got to play the main protagonist and stuff. And this was really huge because most of R.L. Stine movies that do come out, they always have like a white protagonist that's the main star. And one of R.L. Stine's other properties that I've never seen, called Mostly Ghostly, this was a step in the right direction because they started adding people of color. Madison Petrus, I think that's how you say her name, is biracially black. And she starred as one of the little ghost girls in the first 2 movies. And she was also in that one episode, The Haunting Hour, that I told you that she was in Black Mask. However, there's a bit of a problem. For some reason, she didn't come back for the third movie, and she was recast by another actress who I believe is mixed with black and probably indigenous, but I can't really tell online. But by pictures I've seen of her, she looks pretty black. But then again, looks can be deceiving, and so can hairstyles, because of this one former wrestler called Layla. I thought she was black, and turns out she's Indian and stuff. So I'm not really sure, but I'm pretty sure this other actress named Olivia is black. However, there is some confusion when it comes to these movies because Hollywood is Hollywood after all. The role of their brother, who you would think would be half black as well, in the first movie he's white, in the second one he's half black, and in the third he's half Jewish and Latino. It can't be this hard, Hollywood. It can't be this hard. Jeffrey Reddick, he is the man who created the Final Destination movies. I am very shocked and surprised because like in 2000, I never knew this man created this movie series. And Final Destination is probably like my favorite horror movie because I'm not really into horror. I'm more into slasher. But back when I was in college, you know, like I went to the store, I bought this movie, and it turned out to be really cool and stuff. The sequels, however, are not, except for the third, but the rest of the sequels I don't like. And I never knew it until this month when I started researching the movies and talking about them on my channel, which I'll upload in October, because I don't like the sequels except for the third one. And you will find out just how much I hate the second one and the fourth one. But like, so I never, ever did I ever like ask myself, hey, who created this franchise? I just didn't really care because I kind of gave up on it. Then I was just shocked and surprised to find out that a man who's half black, half white is the one who created it. He wrote the first movie. He actually has a footnote in horror. See, back in the day, he wrote a prequel to that of Nightmare on Elm Street, and he sent it in, but it was rejected. And he did that when he was 14 years old. So many years later, he later wrote, Final Destination, and it became a huge hit that has now spawned 5 extra sequels and stuff. And then the last movie is coming out this May. And in this movie series, Tony Todd guest stars in almost all of them as like William Bloodsworth. And it's always a reference to like hooks in like every movie and stuff. Because, he is the candy man and stuff. And so I just never ever knew that like a black man or a biracial black man created one of the most famous movie franchises there is in horror. And I doubt many other people know that too. And he said, he's faced discrimination so many times for being biracial and stuff. And he's gay, so he doubly faced discrimination and stuff. Now, Jeffrey has also created, wrote, and sometimes executive produced other like horror movies like Tamara and stuff, or Tamara, or however you say it. And he wrote the story outline of Final Destination 2, but he did not write the screenplay. He just executive produced it. However, after that, for some bizarre reason, he left and hasn't been back for any other Final Destination movies. However, for the last one, like I said, it's coming out in May, he has promoted it, probably because he gets a paycheck because he created the franchise. I will promote it too. In the late 90s, the Wayans brothers, Marlon, Sean, and that of Keenan, made history by spoofing that of the most popular slasher movies of that time era, which was Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer. And the Scary Movie franchise, which they created the first 2 movies before the Weinstein brothers stole the rights from them and everything. Those were some of the funniest movies in the franchise, especially the first one. And once they left, the movies just started to suck. However, Marlon just revealed that they're making a 6th movie. I think it's 6, maybe 7. I'm not really sure, but I'm pretty sure it's the 6th movie. And this will be the first time the Wayans have returned to the franchise since like either late 90s or the really early like 2000s. I wonder if he's gonna make fun of Soulja Boy in that movie. Jordan Peele is best known for being a comedy actor and a comedy writer. He's done many sketch comedies such as Mad TV, and later on he decided to delve into that of horror with the movies Get Out and Nope. Happy Black History Month, everybody. I'll talk to you later. Bye.